So we've talked about getting data from the user via the keyboard into the arrays and then getting the data out of the arrays. Another way we get data into arrays, and any program for that matter, is with files. So here we're going to show you how to just deal with the files, and it's really not that different than what we did getting data from the input from the keyboard. Alright, so here I got a program already started that has a file that it's opening. I know this file has only 5 values in it. That's why it's called by the 5 numbers. But I'm only creating my array to a size of 3. There it is. Right. If it opens the file, it starts reading us, otherwise it tells us it can't. So I'm going to use the for loop again to control the access to the file and to how many things we're going to read and to the indexing into the array. So as long as index is less than the array size, right, and we increment index. So how do we read from a file? Simply we can use the input, right, the file handler, file, input, and our array, which is values, in this case index, to correct index, and there we go. Alright, and once that's all said and done, I'll do another loop just to show you the values that are in that loop that were read out. So you actually see that we read something. Right? And we'll turn this around, change that to a cout, those values. So let's go take a look at what it does. Alright, so once this starts running, right, there we go. I read 3 values from the files. It's actually 5, 4, and 3. I should put a space in between them. Alright, so I read the 3 values from it and outputted them. Alright, let's clean that up. Put 1 on each line. Alright, so the nice thing on using these constants, I can tell it to go ahead and read all 5 values. Why not? So there it goes. I don't have to change anything else but that, and now it will read 5 values. Okay, so we use constants quite a bit with arrays. And there you see it read the 5, the 4, the 3, the 2, and the 1 from the file, right, which is the order that they're in that file. So the same way we got input and output from using the keyboard before, the output's obviously the same way. Getting the input, really no different. Instead of cin, you're using the file handler, still indexing into the array to get into the array. If you want to write to the file, it's the same way as we wrote individual index values or integer values to a file. It's the same way. Right? We can turn around, create another loop, and do input, file, and we just output, right, with the loop all around this. Right, index, right, and that will write to the file. Right, obviously this is only open for input, so it's not going to work, but just to show you the code that you would need to do it. Alright, what do we get wrong here? Input, it knows it's being open for input, so it's invalid for me to do that. But same statements as you would have before writing index integer values to a file. Right? Now you can just use a loop to get the individual pieces of the data. Right? This thing is actually just one integer value. It's not the array. It's in it. This whole thing combined with the array name and the index is an integer value. That's all it knows. Doesn't know anything else that it's part of an array, doesn't know it's part of anything else, there's data around it or anything. This little piece that's highlighted is simply an integer value. So whatever you can do with an integer variable, you can do with this combination of the array and the index.